Part 3. Winning Friends, Influencing People. At the start of this CD, I introduced you briefly to the 4 main pillars of NLP. One of these upstanding elements is what NLP labels sensory awareness, or how we make meaning of the world and create our own reality by using our senses. Just for a minute, imagine a special creature with highly developed personal antennae. Well, actually that's you. You come tumbling into the world as a new human baby with amazingly well-developed senses, all geared up to discover the secrets of the universe. Ever heard the term, use it or lose it? This is what can happen with our sensory awareness. We get very good at one style of thinking and processing information, and let the rest of our senses lie dormant in a rusty heap. So I'm going to encourage you to try out some new ways of engaging with the world, fine-tuning those incredible senses. You'll notice what a difference it can make. The NLP model describes the way that you experience the external world, and by the way it's called real life, through your 5 senses or modalities of sight, sound, touch, smell, and taste. As you experience reality, you selectively filter information from your environment in 3 broad ways, known in NLP as visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. VAK, or VAC for short, and VACOG if you include the olfactory and gustatory bits. Some see the sights and pictures. You'll have a clear picture of the visual dimension. Others hear the sounds. You'll be tuned in to the auditory dimension. A third group grasp the emotional aspects, or touch. You'll feel the kinesthetic dimension as body awareness, and in this grouping we also include the sense of taste, gustatory, and of smell, olfactory. In everyday life, you will naturally access all of your VAK senses. However, in any one context, one sense may currently dominate for you. As you become more sensitive to the 3 broad groupings of visual, auditory, and kinesthetic at work and play, I promise it'll pay dividends for you. Once people learn to develop their abilities to access pictures, words, and feelings, they often discover talents that they were unaware of before. When people's thoughts and words are highly logical and conceptual and devoid of sensory language, NLP calls this digital processing. Documents from insurance companies are typical of digital language. The obligation to provide this information continues up to the time that there is a completed contract of insurance, and so on. Sometimes 2 people struggle to communicate because they speak with different language styles, even if they have similar viewpoints. One may use an auditory style, for example, and another a visual or kinesthetic style. To be an effective communicator, you need to be able to do 2 things. Know your own preferred style or representational system, and also practice using other ones. In any walk of life, people develop their own shorthand style of language with co-workers, friends, and family. Communication issues arise for any bunch of people when they step outside their peer group. The answer lies in passion. When people live their passion and want to share it with the world, they naturally engage all their senses, and this is reflected in the words they speak. Helen was a touch skeptical about the language differences when she first became curious about NLP. Yet she'd noticed how her husband, Peter, sometimes switched off when she wanted to talk about important decisions at home. She was curious as to whether changing the words she used would have any effect. I realized, she said, that having a strong kinesthetic preference, I'd often begin a conversation with, "Peter, how do you feel about XYZ?" I also noticed that he used plenty of visual language. So I thought I'd give it a go and ask him, "Peter, how do you see XYZ?" The difference, once I began playing with it and slipping more visual words into the conversation, was quite staggering. It was such an easy change to make, and hey presto, I could get his attention. This was magical. By developing your sensory awareness, spotting the details, you can become more attuned to how people may be thinking at different times. When you know this, you can select your words so that they will listen to you. Once you become aware of VAC, life gets more interesting. Here are some ideas on how you can pull it out of your new toolkit and use it to your advantage. For example, influencing a business meeting or presentation. When you speak to a roomful of people, you don't know what preference each has for how they take in information, so you need to ensure you connect with each person in the room by presenting your ideas with a variety of media. Vary your presenting style and aids to help the visuals see it with pictures, the auditories to hear it loud and clear, and the kinesthetics to experience it with feeling. Then there's setting goals in your personal or professional life. They'll come alive if you really use all your senses. Think of what they will really look, sound, and feel like when you've achieved them, and at every step along the way. NLPers get proficient at imagining all the fine details of their future experience. And you can help children to learn better. Visual learners will benefit from pictures, wall displays, and diagrams. Auditory learners need to hear what they're learning through discussions, lectures, and music. Kinesthetic learners benefit from practical sessions and role-playing. They like a hands-on approach. Teachers of groups of pupils need to provide a multi-sensory approach that caters for all styles. The world is full of a wonderful variety of different types of people, with special skills, opinions, and backgrounds. The key to success in both your personal and professional life is rapport. Rapport is about appreciating and working with differences. It makes getting things done much easier. There's no magic pill to learn rapport. It's something you learn intuitively. Think for a moment about someone you have rapport with. What signals do you send out to them and receive back that allow you to know that you're on the same wavelength? How do you create and maintain that rapport? Now, as a contrast, think for a moment about someone you do not have rapport with, but would like to. What signals do you send out to them and receive back that allow you to know that you're not on the same wavelength? What gets in the way of creating and maintaining rapport with that person? Based on your experience with the first person, what might you do differently in your behavior with the second person that can help you build a stronger relationship? You might think that the first person is naturally easy to get on with, and the second is just difficult. Yet by being more flexible in your behavior or thoughts about the second person, you may well find that you can build rapport with them through some simple stages. It may be that you need to take more time to get to know them and what's important to them, rather than expecting them to adapt to you and your style. Having rapport as the foundation for any relationship means that when there are tough issues to discuss, you can more easily find solutions and move on. Fortunately, you can learn how to build rapport. You can do it all the time through the places and people you spend time with, the way you look, sound, and behave, the skills you've learned, and the values that you live by. For starters, take a genuine interest in getting to know what's important to the other person. Start to understand them, rather than expecting them to understand you first. Then, pick up on the key words, favorite phrases, and way of speaking that someone uses, and build these subtly into your own conversation. Notice how someone likes to handle information. Do they like lots of details, or just the big picture? As you speak, feed back information in this same portion size. Look out for the other person's intention, their underlying aim, rather than what they do or say. When you're in rapport with someone, you can disagree with what they say and still relate respectfully with them. The important point to remember is to acknowledge other people for the unique individuals that they are. When you're out and about in bars and restaurants, have you noticed how two people look when there's rapport between them? Without hearing the details of the conversation, you can see it's like a dance. People naturally move in step with each other. There's a sense of unison in their body language and the way they talk, elegantly dovetailing their movements and speech. NLP calls this matching and mirroring. Matching and mirroring is when you take on someone else's style of behavior and their skills, values, or beliefs in order to create rapport with them. It's a way of becoming highly tuned into how someone else is thinking and experiencing the world. It's a way of listening with your whole body. Simple mirroring happens naturally when you have rapport. What NLP suggests is that you can also deliberately match and mirror someone to build rapport until it becomes natural. Beware the fine line between mimicry and moving in rhythm with someone. People instinctively know if you're making fun of them or being insincere. Important advice from NLP to build rapport is pace before you lead. Pacing is how NLP describes the flexibility to pick up and match other people's behaviors and vocabulary respectfully. People are unwilling to be led to new ways of working until they've first been paced, listened to, and acknowledged. There are times when something as small as a tiny word makes a huge difference between your ability to keep rapport and break it. Work by NLP leaders has demonstrated that simple words like and or but make you focus your attention in different ways. When you adopt the but word, people will remember what you said afterwards. With the and word, people will remember what you said before and afterwards. For example, the company has returned £5 million profit this financial year, but we're closing the San Francisco operation. If you say it like this, people may remember only what you said after, but. Now consider, the company has returned £5 million profit this financial year, and we're closing the San Francisco operation. If you say it like this, people remember what you said before and after the word and. One of the ways that NLP helps you to build rapport with others is by distinguishing at least 3 different points of view. NLP calls these perceptual positions. The first position is your own natural perspective, where you're fully aware of what you think and feel. This can be a position of strength, when you're really clear about what you want and your own beliefs and values. It can also be incredibly selfish, until you consciously become aware of what other people want. The second position is about shifting into someone else's shoes, imagining what it's like for them. The third involves taking an independent position where you act as a detached observer, noticing what is happening in the relationship. At its best, this is a mature position where you appreciate a situation from both sides. Sometimes it means you're reluctant to engage fully in a situation, you merely sit on the fence. Mastery of all 3 perspectives puts you in a wise place to enjoy life to the full. The NLP meta-mirror is an exercise developed by Robert Dilts in 1988 to bring together a number of different perspectives, or perceptual positions. It's a way of allowing you to step back and see a problem you're facing in a new light. First, choose a relationship you'd like to explore. Then lay out 4 spaces on the floor to denote 4 positions. Then, stand in first position, your point of view, imagining that you're looking at the other person in second position. Ask yourself, what am I experiencing, thinking, and feeling as I look at this person? Now shake that off and go to stand in second position, imagining you're that person looking back at yourself in first position. Ask yourself, what am I experiencing, thinking, and feeling as I look at this person? Next, shake that off and stand in third position, that of the independent observer, looking at both people in this relationship impartially. Looking at yourself in first position, how do you respond to that you there? Then shake that off and stand in a further external space, the fourth position. Think about how your thoughts in third position compared to your reactions in the first position, and switch them round. Now, go back and revisit second position. Ask yourself, how is this different now? What's changed? Finish by coming home to first position. Ask yourself, how is this different now? What has changed? I promised earlier to return to the subject of metaprograms, and the moment has arrived. Research shows that of the millions of bits of data that bombard your senses every second, your conscious mind can handle only between 5 and 9 pieces of information at any one time. This means that an awful lot of information is filtered out. Metaprograms are some of these unconscious filters. They direct what you pay attention to, the way you process any information you receive, and how you then communicate it. Metaprograms operate along a sliding scale. There's no right or wrong metaprogram. It is simply that you run various combinations of them depending on the context of the communication and the environment in which you find yourself. Imagine a gathering of the heads of the United Nations without any translators. There would be very little communication. A similar breakdown in communication can occur if you're unaware of the metaprograms that the person you're trying to communicate with is operating. Learning about metaprograms allows you to become proficient in translating the mental maps people use to navigate their way around their experiences. Metaprograms are a powerful way to establish rapport verbally by hearing the patterns someone is running and then responding with language that they can understand easily. By being able to recognize which metaprogram a person is prone to operate in a given setting, you can begin to match their metaprograms so that you become more like them and get your message heard more easily. I'll examine two types of people, the proactive and the reactive. If you are proactive, you will take charge and get things done. You're good at spotting solutions to situations which require constant firefighting. You find yourself upsetting some people, as they liken you to a bulldozer. If you are reactive, you may be quite fatalistic. You will wait for others to take the lead, or take action only when you consider the time to be right. You may need to be careful not to analyze yourself into a paralysis. To discover whether someone is proactive or reactive, you can ask, do you find it easy to take action when you find yourself in a new situation, or do you need to study and understand what's going on first? A proactive person uses phrases such as, just do it, go for it, run with it, take control, and hit the tarmac running. From a reactive person, you're more likely to hear, take your time, study the data, weigh the pros and cons, and look before you leap. Professions and cultures can exhibit a bias for running either towards or away from metaprograms. People with away from patterns will appear quite negative to those who operate towards patterns. Away from people have a tendency to notice what could go wrong. They're very useful to employ for maintaining production plants and aircrafts, managing crises, or conducting critical analysis. People with toward metaprograms may be seen as naive by the away from people because towards people don't always think about potential problems in the pursuit of their goals. Another set of opposites are options and procedures people. An options person enjoys trying out new ways of doing things. A procedures person prefers following set methodologies. If you have a preference for an options metaprogram, you will be good at starting projects, although you may not always see them through. Because of your penchant for testing new ways, you will be unable to resist improving the most rigorously tried and tested methods. If you have a procedures preference, you like to follow set rules, and you may prefer to have these created for you rather than design them yourself. Once you have a working procedure, you will follow it without modification. You may hear someone with a mainly options metaprogram use phrases like, play it by ear, bend the rules, and try this other way. A person who is more at the procedures end of the scale may be heard using expressions like, obey the rules, and step by step. When starting work on a project or setting a goal, some people find it easier to see the big picture. Others find it difficult to get a global perspective, but find it much easier to envisage the steps required to achieve the goals, and prefer to work with smaller details. Chunk size refers to the size of the task a person prefers to work with. A person with a global preference will break tasks into larger chunks than a detail person. A detail person will need to have a task chunked down into smaller, more manageable steps. When within your comfort zone, you'll have a combination of metaprograms that you prefer to adopt. Try to remember that this choice may change depending on the different circumstances you find yourself in. For instance, a project manager may combine proactive, detail, and toward when at work, but may choose to be more of a reactive, global person when at home. Realize the power of using the right language. That is, words and phrases that mean the most to the person with whom you're communicating. This will allow you to build rapport and get your message heard better than someone who is not as skilled in the art of metaprograms. If you're having problems with another person, Is it because you are at opposite ends of a metaprogram scale? Can you identify the metaprograms being used by you and the other person? If you talk about the big picture and the person with whom you're communicating is a details person, bite the bullet and go into more detail. Mismatched metaprograms can result in a great deal of conflict and miscommunication. So, practice feeding back what you hear of someone else's language.